I'm Isabel, your AI host, here to guide you through an important discussion on how climate change is driving rising temperatures in India and what that means for all of us. Today, we'll explore the science behind global warming, breaking it down step by step so that by the end of this journey, you'll have a clear understanding of how these changes are shaping our world and what we can do to address them. Imagine walking through the streets of India, where the warmth of the sun used to be a gentle companion. But over the decades, that warmth has intensified due to climate change. Each year, the seasons are shifting. And this isn't just a fleeting observation. It's a scientific reality tied directly to global warming. Over the last century, India has witnessed a significant rise in its average temperatures, a pattern reflective of global climate change. In the early 1900s, the average temperature in India hovered around 24 degrees Celsius. For many decades, the shifts in temperature were gradual, almost imperceptible. But as industrialization accelerated, deforestation increased, and urban areas expanded, the effects of climate change became more pronounced. By the 1970s, a clear pattern of global warming began to emerge, and since the 2000s, this warming has only intensified. Today, the average temperature across India has risen by nearly 4 degrees, an increase with far-reaching impacts on ecosystems, agriculture, and human health. To understand how climate change is influencing these shifts, let's take a look at the data. Decade by decade, we can observe the rise in temperature anomalies, small deviations from the historical norm, which reflect the broader global warming trend. By 2020, these anomalies were no longer small but had accumulated into significant shifts. What was once an average temperature of 24 degrees in 1901 now frequently surpasses 25 degrees, with heat waves becoming more intense and prolonged, especially during the pre-monsoon months. Now, let's pause and reflect on the evidence. If we examine the graph that traces India's temperature trends from 1901 to 2020, we can clearly see the impact of climate change. The baseline temperature from the early 1900s gradually gives way to a steady rise over the decades, with a blue trend line marking the overall progression of global warming. This trend is unmistakable, a visual representation of how climate change is reshaping India's climate. The graph not only highlights yearly variations, but also underscores the long-term shift in temperatures, reinforcing the urgency of addressing global warming. Let's move forward. The impacts of climate change are not uniform across India. Some regions, particularly in northern and central India, have experienced more intense warming, while the northeastern parts have seen more moderate increases, possibly influenced by atmospheric patterns and land use changes. Furthermore, it's not just daytime temperatures that are rising. Nighttime temperatures, which once offered relief, are now creeping upwards, making it harder for ecosystems, crops, and communities to adapt to the changing climate. Scientists have worked diligently to map these changes using decades of data from weather stations across the country. Their findings present a concerning picture. If climate change continues unchecked, India's future summers will be hotter, more intense, and marked by more frequent droughts, heat waves, and disruptions to agriculture. So, what's driving this rise in temperatures? The answer lies in the atmosphere. Greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide, are accumulating and trapping heat, intensifying global warming. India, with its growing industrial base, transportation sector, and reliance on fossil fuels, is a significant contributor to this problem. Urbanization, deforestation, and changing land use are compounding the effects, reducing the capacity of ecosystems to naturally regulate the climate. Let's revisit the graph one more time. The data and the trend line don't lie. When we chart India's temperature increases from 1901 to 2020, the impact of global warming is clear. This upward trend is accelerating, and the longer we wait to act on climate change, the steeper this curve will become. While the data presents a stark reality, it also offers an opportunity for action. By understanding the scale and cause of these changes, we can take meaningful steps to slow the rise in temperatures, protect vulnerable communities, and adapt to the new realities brought by climate change. This is not just a story of data points and graphs. It's the story of India, of its people, landscapes, and future. It's a story we are living through today, and the choices we make now will shape how this story unfolds tomorrow. Thank you for joining me today. Stay tuned for more insights, and remember, together we can tackle climate change and make a difference for future generations.